You missed the shot, not because you flinched, not because the wind fooled you, and not because the animal moved. You missed it because the glass between your eye and that animal was lying to you. Look, 90% of hunters out there are still running scopes that were designed for a world that no longer exists. They are out there in the dark, squinting through yellow, washed-out glass, burning the last 30 seconds of legal light on a scope that cannot keep up with their rifle, their ammunition, or their eyes. Meanwhile, a small group of hunters figured something out. They stopped buying names. They started buying engineering. In 2026, the scope is no longer just glass in a tube. It range finds your target. It reads the air pressure. It calculates the drop. It puts a lit point of impact exactly where the bullet is going to strike, before you ever touch the trigger. 7 scopes made it onto this list. 7 systems that represent the absolute cutting edge of what hunting optics can do right now. Some of them will save your hunt. One of them will change how you think about shooting entirely. Let's get into it. Starting at the bottom of this list does not mean starting with something weak. It means starting with something most hunters completely overlook, and that is a mistake. The Athlon Ares HLR, Hunter Light Rifle, 18.9 ounces. Let that number sink in for a second. You are getting a full 2.5 to 15 power zoom range, a precision zero-stop turret system, and fully multi-coated HD glass in a package that weighs less than a bottle of water. Here is the deal. When you are 3 miles into a backcountry elk hunt, straight up a 40-degree ridgeline, every single ounce on that rifle is a tax your legs are paying. Most hunters buy a carbon fiber rifle to save weight, then strap a 30-ounce scope on top of it, and wonder why their knees are done by day 2. The Ares HLR was built specifically to end that contradiction. Under the hood, Athlon fills this scope with argon gas instead of the standard nitrogen you find in most competitors. Why does that matter? Argon molecules are physically larger. They seal tighter over time, which means the internal fog proofing holds longer through rapid elevation and temperature swings. Exactly the conditions you face dropping into a high-altitude basin at dawn, when the temperature shifts 15 degrees in 20 minutes. The APLR H2 MOA reticle sits in the second focal plane, keeping that crosshair clean and uncluttered at low magnification when you need fast target acquisition on a spooked bull at 100 yards. Dial it up to 15 power across a canyon, and that same reticle gives you the holdover references to make an ethical shot past 500 yards with confidence. Now, the deal breaker, and with the Ares HLR, it is a financial one. Athlon positions this scope as a premium lightweight option, but the moment you start comparing its turret feel and tracking precision against Leupold or Nightforce at similar price points, the clicks feel slightly less crisp under pressure. For a pure mountain hunter who trusts the reticle holdovers over dialing anyway, it is a non-issue. But if you are a turret dialer who demands that mechanical feedback on a cold morning with frozen fingers, this might frustrate you just enough to notice. Rugged, featherlight, technically sound. The Ares HLR earns its spot on this list as the ultimate backcountry tool. Just know what you are trading for that weight savings. Now, let's talk about something that does not break, ever. The Trijicon Credo HX 2.5 to 15 by 42. Built by the same people who supply optics to the most demanding military units on the planet. And they did not water it down when they brought it to the hunting market. This thing went through 5,000 rounds of simulated heavy recoil testing before it ever saw a store shelf. 5,000. They froze it, boiled it, drowned it, and shook it until lesser scopes would have lost their zero entirely. The Credo HX came out the other side, holding point of impact like it was bolted to the laws of physics. Stepping up the game here, because at rank 6, we are no longer talking about good scopes. We are talking about scopes that refuse to fail you. The 6061 T6 aircraft aluminum body is finished in a smooth matte black that does not catch light in the field. 30mm main tube, 100 MOA of internal elevation travel, and an eye box that stays forgiving from 3.4 to 3.9 inches across the full magnification range, which means you are not getting scope bite when you are running a hard-kicking Magnum cartridge through this thing at max power. Under the hood, the Power.BDC Hunter Holds reticle is where this scope earns its keep in low light. 10 separate brightness settings with intermittent off positions between each one, meaning you can fine-tune that illumination to match exactly what your eye needs at last light. Whether you are picking a target out of dark timber or silhouetted against an open sky, red or green, your choice. Both are dialed for the exact spectral range where the human eye is most sensitive under diminishing light conditions. The second focal plane placement keeps that crosshair thick and fast at 2.5 power for close timber work, then opens up the full BDC tree for precise holdovers as you reach out at 15 power. And if you prefer to dial rather than hold, the tool-free exposed elevation turret delivers quarter MOA clicks that are crisp, tactile, and absolutely repeatable. Here is your deal breaker though, and it falls squarely in the ergonomics category. The illumination control is integrated into the parallax adjustment knob on the left side of the turret housing. It is a clever, compact design, but hunters coming from scopes with dedicated illumination dials on the eyepiece will find themselves reaching for a knob that is not where their muscle memory expects it to be. In a high-pressure moment at dusk, fumbling for that control costs you seconds you do not have. 22.9 ounces, 13.9 inches, virtually indestructible. If you hunt hard country and you need a scope that survives every season you put it through without a single complaint, the Trijicon Credo HX is your answer. Sound off below if you have ever run Trijicon glass in the field. I know the fanboys on both sides have opinions about this one. Here is something the industry does not want to admit out loud. You do not have to spend $2,000 to get elite-level glass. The Burris Veracity Generation 2, 3 to 15 power, 44mm objective, a complete ground-up redesign more than a decade in the making. This is not a refresh. Burris stripped the original platform down to bare metal and rebuilt every system from scratch. The glass, the mechanics, the ergonomics, and the turret architecture. What shipped in February of 2026 is a fundamentally different scope wearing a familiar name. Start with the glass. Premium ED glass paired with fully multi-coated lenses produces outstanding brightness, sharp resolution, and color fidelity that competes directly with optics, costing significantly more. The low-light performance gap between the original Veracity and the Generation 2 is not incremental. Hunters running both versions back-to-back report noticeably more usable detail in the final minutes of shooting light. The window that defines whether a season ends with a tag filled or an empty freezer. Now the knob synergy system. This is where the Generation 2 separates itself from everything else at this price point. Every other scope ships with one turret configuration. The knob synergy system gives you three. A low-profile capped knob for clean field carry, an exposed pro elevation knob with 2 turns of travel and a zero-click stop for precision dialing, or a custom laser-engraved turret matched exactly to your load and ballistic profile. The same capability as the Leupold CDS system sitting at number 1 on this list, at a fraction of the price. The RED industrial design integrates aggressive high-traction knurling on every control surface. Cold fingers, thick gloves, wind-driven rain on an exposed ridge. Every adjustment on this scope was engineered to be operated decisively under those exact conditions. Eye relief pushes nearly 5 inches, among the most generous in this entire field, protecting you from scope bite on hard-kicking Magnum loads without repositioning between power changes. The deal breaker falls in the reticle category. The fiber dot illumination is clean and fast, but hunters who regularly shoot past 500 yards and need dense wind correction marks at distance will find the reticle options lean towards simplicity over precision. It gets out of the way, sometimes too far out of the way. 3 to 15 power, 44mm objective, modular turret system, premium ED glass, nearly 5 inches of eye relief. The Burris Veracity Generation 2 quietly walks into a room full of established names and makes every one of them recalculate their value proposition. But wait until you see what is sitting above it, because the Veracity is going to feel like a warm-up act by the time we get there. Entering the elite tier at number 3, we have the Bushnell R5 3-9 by 50mm. Look, if you need a classic hunting magnification range but refuse to pack it in when the sun drops, this rig demands your absolute respect. For the guys hunting deep in the heavy timber, where the lighting conditions are absolutely brutal, this optic delivers serious real-world capability without forcing you to empty your savings account. Let us break down exactly how the internal optics work to give you a massive tactical advantage. Beneath the aluminum housing, Bushnell mated a traditional 3 to 9 power erector system with a massive 50mm objective lens. Why does that specific geometry actually matter in the brush? It all comes down to the raw mathematics of the exit pupil. When you dial that magnification ring all the way down to 3 power, that giant objective lens funnels a massive 16.6mm beam of raw light directly into your pupil. That creates an incredibly wide and forgiving eye box, meaning your head does not need to be perfectly aligned behind the stock to see the full target when you are rushing to shoulder the rifle. Out in the dirt, this rig fights the weather for you. The exterior glass surfaces are treated with their proprietary EXO barrier, which is an active molecular shield that literally forces water and oil to bead up and slide completely off the lens. When you are breathing heavy in the freezing cold, your hot breath will not fog up the ocular glass. Twisting the capped elevation turrets gives you a snappy, tactile click that feels exactly like snapping a dry wooden dowel in half. It lets you dial in your zero with total mechanical confidence before you screw the caps back on for the rest of the season. The damage to your wallet is right around $350, making it an absolute steal for guys slinging .308 Winchester downrange. But honestly, there is a brutal performance flaw you have to accept before you bolt this to your rail. Because this specific model utilizes an extremely basic duplex reticle, it completely lacks any usable windage dots or elevation hash marks on the crosshairs. If you are trying to stretch a shot across a windy open clearing, you are forced to hold your crosshairs out in empty space and completely guess the bullet drop. That strips away all the mechanical certainty from your trigger pull when the distance pushes past 200 yards, turning a perfect shot into a high-risk gamble. Closer to the crown now, and rank 3 is where this list gets into territory that would have been classified as science fiction 10 years ago. The Burris Eliminator 6, 4 to 20 power, 52mm objective, 34mm main tube, 30 ounces. What you are looking at is not a scope with a rangefinder bolted onto it as an afterthought. What you are looking at is a fully integrated fire control system, the kind of technology that used to live exclusively inside military aircraft and special operations equipment, compressed into a hunting rifle optic that a civilian can mount, configure, and run in the field without a technical manual and a PhD. Let me break down exactly what happens the moment you acquire a target through this glass. You hit the remote activation button mounted to your rifle stock via Bluetooth connection. The internal laser rangefinder, housed inside that massive 34mm main tube, fires a beam downrange and returns a measurement. On reflective targets like steel or glass, it reads accurately out to 2,000 yards. On soft targets, deer hide, elk hide, the kind of living tissue that does not bounce laser energy efficiently, it reads reliably to 1,400 yards. That distance feeds instantly into the onboard ballistic engine. And here is where the engineering gets genuinely extraordinary. 8 environmental sensors are sampling data simultaneously: atmospheric pressure, temperature, incline angle, the Burris Connect application, loaded on your phone before the hunt with your specific ammunition profile, including bullet weight, muzzle velocity, ballistic coefficient, and barrel twist rate, has already fed the computational core everything it needs to know about your exact load. The solution generates in under a second. That solution gets projected directly onto the X177 reticle through a micro OLED heads-up display. 177 individual micro LED elements illuminate a point of aim with a precision of 1/5 MOA. Not a zone, not an approximation, a single lit point telling you exactly where your bullet will strike at that specific distance, in those specific atmospheric conditions, with that specific ammunition. You place the dot on the animal. You break the trigger. The distance calculation, the wind value display, the incline compensation, all of it lives in your field of view, without requiring you to look away from the target. The cognitive load of a 400-yard shot in a crosswind gets reduced to the same mental effort as a shot at 100 yards on a calm day, closer to the crown. Because what the Eliminator 6 does for the average hunter's effective ethical range is not a marginal improvement, it is a transformation. The ED glass inside this system, necessary to maintain optical clarity through the additional internal electronic architecture, delivers a bright, aberration-free image across the full 5:1 zoom range. 4 power for close work, 20 power for extreme distance target identification. The image quality does not collapse at the edges, the way cheaper computational optics tend to when the internal electronics generate heat interference. Now, the deal breaker, and this one sits firmly in the financial category. The Eliminator 6 runs on a proprietary ecosystem. The Burris Connect application requires active maintenance and periodic firmware updates to keep the ballistic engine current with new ammunition data. The remote Bluetooth activation button is a component that can fail independently of the scope itself, requiring replacement at additional cost. And the 34mm main tube demands mounting hardware that is not universally available in standard hunting rifle ring sets, adding another line item to the total system cost before you ever fire a round. 30 ounces, 14.6 inches, 2,000-yard laser ranging, micro OLED fire control projection. The Burris Eliminator 6 does not just change how far you can shoot. It changes how you think about the relationship between the hunter, the rifle, and the target. And that is exactly why it sits one step below the absolute top of this list. Because the two scopes above it, one of them earns the crown through pure mechanical perfection, and the other takes it by combining that perfection with a pedigree that nothing else on this list can touch. Entering the elite tier, and I want you to understand something before we talk about this scope. Nightforce does not make budget optics. Nightforce does not make entry-level anything. Every single product that leaves their facility in Orofino, Idaho goes through a standard of mechanical verification that most manufacturers would consider excessive, obsessive, and frankly unnecessary. Nightforce considers it baseline. The NX6 3 to 18 by 50 mm first focal plane. This is the scope that military precision shooters transition to when they move into the civilian market and refuse to downgrade their standards. The scope that professional hunting guides in Alaska and the Canadian Rockies mount on their personal rifles, not their clients' rifles. Because when one shot is all you are going to get in brutal conditions at distance, this is what they trust with their own name on the line. 27.1 ounces, 13.9 inches, 30mm aerospace-grade aluminum, with a wall thickness that laughs at impacts that would dent lesser housings. The field-set elevation system delivers 34.9 misirad, 120 MOA, of total travel in a single continuous rotation. That adjustment range gives long-range hunters running 6.5 Creedmoor or 300 PRC the ability to dial corrections past 800 yards without running out of turret. The zero stop is fully configurable, and the field set supports intentional under travel below zero up to 2 mil. 2 loads, 1 scope, Zero confusion in the field. The first focal plane reticle scales mathematically at every magnification setting. Wind holds, moving target leads, ranging off known target size. Every calculation works at 3 power or at 18 power without requiring maximum magnification first. Digital illumination integrates directly into the parallax knob. Red and green, multiple brightness levels calibrated for dawn and dusk. Last setting memory so the scope comes back exactly where you left it. The deal breaker is financial. The NX6 commands a price that places it beyond reach for hunters not treating optics as a lifetime investment. And the 30mm tube, while mechanically superior to a 1-inch tube in every way, still trails the 34mm architecture of the Burris Eliminator 6 in raw internal adjustment range for extreme long-range applications past 1,000 yards. The Nightforce NX6 F1 is the scope you buy when you are done experimenting. It sits at rank 2 for one reason only. The scope above it does everything the NX6 does at the mechanical level, and then adds optical refinement, field-tested innovation, and weight engineering that gives it the throne. And that scope is next. Finally, we reach the undisputed king of the mountain. The #1 spot goes to the Leupold VX-5HD, generation 2.3 to 15 by 44mm. It takes the throne because it gives you the rugged, lightweight mobility of the Athlon at #7, but with a flawless, custom-tuned tracking system that puts the raw computational power of the Burris at #3 to absolute shame. It is the perfect balance of dead simple reliability and elite optical clarity. Let us look at the brain of this system, the CDSS-ZL2 speed set dial. Instead of a generic turret that requires Allen wrenches and mathematical guesswork in the freezing rain, Leupold laser engraves this specific dial to perfectly match your exact bullet weight, ballistic coefficient, and true muzzle velocity. How does it actually work? It physically translates complex bullet drop physics directly into actual yardage markers on the dial, meaning you simply range the target at 400 yards, spin the dial exactly to the number 4, and break the shot. No phone apps, no stress, just pure mechanical certainty. Tipping the scales at a beautifully light 19.9 ounces, it adds practically zero dead weight to your rig. When you look through that 44mm objective lens, the proprietary Guard ion hydrophobic coating violently sheds water and oil, keeping your sight picture completely pristine in brutal weather. The recoil pulse from a heavy 300 Winchester Magnum is soaked up easily, and the glass provides an eye box that is as wide and forgiving as an open barn door, holding a rock-solid eye relief right around 3.8 inches. This optic seals the deal with the fire dot illumination system tied directly to their internal motion sensor technology. It completely eliminates battery anxiety by putting the reticle to sleep after 5 minutes of dead silence. But the second you shoulder the rifle, it snaps awake instantly. It eats heavy recoil for breakfast, tracks flawlessly, and guarantees that when that trophy buck steps out of the timber in the dying light, you are going strictly to work. Look, the optics industry wants you constantly chasing the next shiny toy. But out in the timber, all that matters is cold, hard reliability. The 2026 lineup proves that whether you are counting ounces on a steep incline or relying on an onboard computer to make the math disappear, there is absolutely no excuse for missing your mark. Stop settling for cheap glass that quits on you when the weather turns brutal. Train hard, stay safe, and I will see you downrange.